Good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Shivali, and I've been asked to talk to the audience about a healthy heart diet or a heart healthy diet. Uh, I'll do my best here, and I think one thing we all need to understand is that food is one of the basic pleasures in our life, and food cannot be taken to the extent of being medicine. It takes away the pleasure when we try to push that to that extent. And so I think we all need to enjoy what we do, but there are certain things we all can do as we are healthy and hopefully not go into having a heart problem, so that if at all we go in there, we can still manage with things that that the doctors are going to tell you should or should not do. A healthy heart is going to be in a healthy body, and there's not diet alone that's going to make or break the heart. So knowing that, we will see what are the things we can do to improve the heart health. So going back into foods, everyone talks about different kinds of foods. I just wanted to put this here for completion's sake. There are carbs, there are proteins, there are fats. The only difference between carbs, proteins, and fats is that carbs and fats have got carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, whereas the proteins have got nitrogen. And if you take away nitrogen from the protein, then everything is carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, so everything is fat and carb. So the body has got an incredible capacity to convert anything to anything, except we cannot convert anything into protein, because protein is unique. Protein has got nitrogen. So once we have an excess of any of this, the body converts it into fat. Other than that, there's not much to know about that. Now, when we are talking about a healthy heart, we are looking at several different factors that go to make an unhealthy heart. The unhealthy heart is come to be made by long-standing hypertension, diabetes, overweight, and inactivity, smoking, and all these things. Some of the things that can be changed by diet would be high blood pressure and diabetes. We obviously can't change our genes. We're not going to do much about smoking with diet. So when we are talking about diet and we are talking about the heart, we are making an indirect effect on the heart by controlling our blood pressure, by treating our diabetes, or keeping our sugars under control. And that's where the diet comes into. So here, basically, we need to watch our portion size. Portion size is all important. We don't need to go on to get an exotic Mediterranean diet, or the diet that's eaten by vegans or other people. We can eat the diet we want and we enjoy, and we should just control the portion size, just remembering that anything in excess to what the body needs that day is converted into fat and stored in the body fat depots. So we should try and put in as much as we burn out, and I think we will do fine. So here basically saying that don't take seconds and don't eat until you're stuffed, and we can cheat our body by using low calorie foods, and you will see later low calorie foods are going to be fruits and vegetables, and if that constitutes about 50% of your plate, then it makes it very easy to get your calorie under control. So this is basically the same thing. And the next thing is whole grains. The reason you got to select whole grains and not processed food is that there is a lot of bulk in the whole grains, and that adds to the bulk, that adds to the satiety, and it takes away from the calorie portion of your diet. And it gives you examples of what you should use and what you should not use, and these are all in your handouts. Then coming to fats part, the healthy fats and unhealthy fats. there's a lot of myth about what is healthy and what is unhealthy fat. At one time butter was said to be a very, very bad thing, and today we think that margarine is worse than butter. And the bottom line is, again, remember, all these things are converted to fat in the body. They all have calories. When the body burns it, it burns the calories. Whatever it cannot burn, it converts it into fat and stores it. Now, I'll tell you a little thing which, things are not there on the slide. The total amount of cholesterol that we eat that gets incorporated into our body cholesterol is less than 5%. So if we took cholesterol and fed somebody pure cholesterol that is radio labeled and then check their body level of cholesterol, we find that only 5% of it comes from what we eat. 95% of it comes from what our body makes from scratch of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, programmed by the genes in our body. So some of us might go to vast distances trying to limit what we eat. It is not what we eat. What we eat makes about a 5% difference in our diet. What our genes program makes about 95%. So those of us who have high cholesterol, unfortunately, will end up on medications. But again, there are choices. When we say healthy choices and unhealthy choices, the difference between a saturated fat and a unsaturated fat is it's much easier for our body to convert a saturated fat into cholesterol than to convert an unsaturated fat. The rule of thumb is any fat that at room temperature is liquid, meaning at 70 degrees Fahrenheit is liquid, is an unsaturated fat. Anything at room temperature is solid, is a saturated fat. So butter, margarine, or coconut oil, which is now the new fat, these are all saturated fats. And these are very easily converted by our body into cholesterol, as opposed to whether you take canola oil or olive oil or anything else. And again, another myth there is that if you take olive oil, which is much better than canola oil, which is better than peanut oil, these things are very fine nuances there. We don't consume so much of those in quantity to make a difference. And also the way we prepare our meal makes a difference. If you're going to take olive oil and deep fry it, it's probably worse than taking peanut oil and deep frying it, because olive oil is not meant to stand high temperatures. So I don't think we should go with this bandwagon of coconut oil is good or olive oil is good or this oil is good, but use whatever oil you like. Remember, food is for enjoyment. If it's not for food, I wouldn't wake up and come here and talk to all of you, nor would you all be here. So you need to enjoy what you do and do it in moderation. Remember, keep this concept of calories in your mind. Everything has got calories, and we just have to we should consume the calories we burn, but also we have to enjoy what we eat. And this is more of the same thing. And again, the fats to choose, we got olive oil and canola oil. That margarine is wrong there. I would put butter in the place of margarine. I personally use butter. I would advocate everyone to use butter, not margarine. And the fats to limit. These are old things, they just go in cycles. And so got to excuse me for not updating that. And then the protein. Protein is essential for body building, and protein, as I said, differs from carbohydrates and fat in that it has a nitrogen group. Any food that has protein in it is expensive because the nitrogen fixing capability of plants is limited, and that of when we consume animal foods, we just have to remember that there's a lot of protein in it, but it comes with varying degrees of fat. So when we are talking about lean meat, red meat, fish, and all these things, it is not the protein which is the bad protein in the red meat, but the red meat comes with a lot more fat in it. And so therefore, fat being the most dense form of calories, we want to avoid it. 1 gram of fat will give us about 9 kilocalories of energy, and a gram of protein will give about 7, and the carbohydrates will give us about the same too. And then proteins from animal sources tend to have, as I said, more fat, and so you want to go with proteins from plant sources. Any beans have got, any of those beans have got a lot of protein in them. This is probably the single most important thing for a healthy heart, and that is sodium. Sodium is there everywhere. The sodium consumption for a person with heart disease should be less than 2 grams. For anyone who is 50 years or older, should be 2 grams. And study after study has shown that you can take a perfectly normal individual, feed him a lot of sodium, and make them hypertensive. So in the past, we used to believe that if the kidneys are normal, if your consumption of sodium is irrespective of sodium consumption, your kidneys would be able to clear your salt, but that is not true. Once we hit the age of 50, the number of functioning units in the kidney called the glomeruli decrease, and so our ability to excrete a given load of sodium becomes difficult. Sodium is what the body needs to hold water. If I give 2 individuals the same amount of water and give individual A a low sodium diet and individual B a high sodium diet, then the individual B is going to hold more water than individual A, because what makes the water stick to your body is salt. If there's no salt, the water just slides off of you. It does not matter how much water you drink, but if you can really control your salt, then that water is not going to stick to you. And why is that important? It's important because the sodium is kept inside the blood vessels. So look at blood vessels as a bunch of tubes, and the heart at one end trying to circulate the blood through this bunch of tubes. And if you're going to engorge this tube system with a lot of fluid, then the pressure is going to go up. It's going to cause hypertension. It's going to make it hard on the heart to pump, and people end up with all kinds of issues. So sodium is very, very important. We all should make it a habit to watch the salt right from when we are healthy to keep healthy. And 2 grams of sodium is a very, very difficult diet to achieve. I was just reading the other day, the average sodium consumption in our diet is about 10 grams. So they want us to cut down our salt by a 5-fold. And if you start reading the labels, you're going to see there's sodium in everything, including milk. And the biggest source of sodium in our diet, if somebody's going to guess, is going to be what? Is bread. Okay? The bread, if we are going to eat 4 slices of bread, we get the sodium content for the day. That's what it is. So look for sodium and cut down on the sodium. Make it a habit to cut down the sodium in our diet. It predisposes to hypertension, predisposes to kidney failure, and once there's kidney failure, it makes heart failure worse. So the single most important thing is calories, and after that is sodium. And if we are going to cut down our sodium, I think we will have a lot more longevity in our population. And anything that is canned, basically, there are 5 things that people should avoid, and that is canned foods other than canned fruits have got a lot of salt. The second thing is pickles. The third thing is TV dinners, which we fortunately don't eat at our age, but as we get older, it's convenient and it's very, very hard. The fourth thing is eating out. If you're going to eat out one day, you probably got enough salt for 4 days worth. And so we will have to learn to make things from scratch and eat at home. Once you eat out, the sodium count is gone. So, and then processed meats. If you have to eat, sandwich meats, get it from a deli, not from the rack, because there's a lot of salt in it. So if we can try and minimize the amount of these foods, then I think our sodium content will be under control. So Well, you can have a treat once in a while. And so now the food groups and all that, that we have learned about the pyramid and all that, and they are going to come up with a new scheme for the food pyramid. I think I'm told that it's going to change. They are going to take away butter from the unhealthy fats and put it into healthy fats, and take away margarine from the healthy fats and put it into unhealthy fats. So a lot of changes are going to come. In the food groups, the thing to remember is fruits and vegetables have to constitute 50% of your plate, whatever plate you make up. And the other 50% has to be, 3/4 of the other half has to be carbs and fat, and a quarter has to be protein. And if that's how we constitute our plate, we're going to be fine. So, well, these sources of protein, the sources of fat. These are all the carbs. The difference between simple carbohydrates and complex carbohydrates is the body uses glucose. Glucose is the simplest unit of sugar. When a bunch of glucose units are linked to each other, it forms a complex carbohydrate. It is not only important for us to see how much carbohydrate we are putting in our meal, but how quickly it gets absorbed into our body. Because insulin is supposed to be a very bad thing for the blood vessels. The amount of insulin that gets into our blood is directly proportional to the rate of rise of blood sugar. So if I were to feed an individual 50 grams of sugar, then their blood sugar is going to hit a peak in about 60 minutes and it's going to drop down. The same thing if I were to give this person 50 grams of a complex carbohydrate, which means a bunch of sugar molecules linked to each other, either in the form of an oatmeal or in the form of a wheat or anything else. The body has to break it down into individual units before it goes up. The sugar goes up very gradually over a period of about 90 minutes to 3 hours, and then it slowly comes down. The importance is when the sugar peaks up like that and comes down, the pancreas has to put a lot of insulin into our body to get that sugar down, and that insulin is what is causing atherosclerotic plaque and causing plaque rupture and all those things. So calories being the same in 50 grams of carbohydrate, whether they come from pure sugar or from a complex carbohydrate, the insulin, which is what is responding to keep your sugar down, is a lot more deleterious when we eat 50 grams of 50 grams of sugar as opposed to 50 grams of a complex carbohydrate. So calories, carbohydrates, in carbohydrates, choose the more complex carbohydrates rather than simple carbohydrates, so that the rate of rise of sugar is more gradual and you have a more even plateau and it comes down. So limit your processed foods, watch your salt, and trans fat is not so much for the heart, but for other kinds of things like breast cancer and other things. Trans fat is a very hotly debated topic in cardiology. We're not sure if it is bad or even good. With that little thing in your mind, I'm going to leave it there. The word is not out there yet that trans fat is bad for the heart, and but I'm going to leave it there. Let me put one more thing into your mind here, and that is, of the fats, the carbohydrates, and the proteins, which one do you think your heart solely lives on? It lives solely on the fatty acids. It cares nothing for the carb. It cares nothing for the protein. The heart has got a machinery that digests essentially only fats. It does not use carbohydrate. It does not use protein. You may all wonder why. Why is it that heart uses only fat? Remember that carbohydrates need insulin. If there is a cell and there is a bunch of carbohydrates hanging in a sugar solution, it will not be able to pick up a small ditzel of that sugar as long as there is no insulin around. So insulin is a necessity for the cell to pick up glucose, whereas for fatty acid, it does not need insulin. And because fat is an essential part of the body, the evolution has so occurred that it does not depend on anything to utilize the nutrient that's around. So when there's fatty acid, it just picks it up, doesn't care about insulin, and that's what the heart runs on entirely. So all these things get converted to fat, they get deposited in the body, they raise insulin, they raise our pressure, and by those various different mechanisms, they hurt the heart. But fatty acids themselves is what the heart thrives on, and that's what it lives on. So these are different kinds of platters that we can make, and you can see half of it is vegetables and fruits, and the other half is those things. The things to understand in the vegetables are corn is not a vegetable, potatoes, we do not count it in the vegetables, and so if you don't use corn, and I think the rest of the vegetables we eat are vegetables, and in the fruits, all fruits are fine. There is a concept that fruits that are rich in carbohydrates like bananas, apples, cantaloupes are not good, but if you're going to count them into your carbs, you're just fine. They do count as fruits and vegetables. Well, these are different meal plans, and these are the different sites, and you can go to that site, the first one there. They have got the salt content and the calorie content and of any food you can imagine. There's a search box, and if you just type in there, it'll give you the calories or the salt or any of this. So to summarize, I think a healthy heart lives in a healthy body, and all the things are important. We need to take care of our pressure, we need to take care of our diabetes, we need to exercise, but food is to enjoy, and I think we should all enjoy, and I don't think we should have to take the diet of another culture or any other society that we are not used to. We got foods that we enjoy, and we just have to eat a healthy portion of the foods we eat to be healthy. And I think, and the second thing is the salt. We have got so fixated on a low-fat diet that all these lean cuisines have loaded a ton of salt into our food to make up for the taste. And in going in for a lean cuisine, we are loading ourselves with salt, and we're ending up in trouble. So I think eat what you enjoy, eat it in a limited portion, but keep your eyes out for the salt, because there's a lot of salt out there that we don't need. Any questions, any thoughts? Go ahead.
I just have one question. I've heard that recently that eating regular sugar is healthier for your body than eating or drinking, for instance, coffee with saccharin, with the artificial sweeteners because of chemicals and things in them.
Yeah, I mean, this is a study that came out of the Mayo Clinic. What they said is that in people who use aspartame or Splenda, it causes a rebound increase in our hunger. And so therefore people who do these kind of drinks, thinking that they are saving on the calories, are ending up with more problems because there's a rebound increase in hunger, and so therefore we end up consuming more calories elsewhere, and that's what does bad. Yeah, that's very true. It is, I mean, what you said is perfectly true, but what we should not mistake in there is that we are giving up so many calories here so we can pick up so many more calories there is not what we should do. If I'm having a Diet Coke just because I'm trying to save the sugar there, but I'm going to make it up in a banana split later, that's not going to work. Yeah. Any questions? No questions? Good. Thank you.